All good things must come to an end. That's kind of a theme this year, but don't read too much into it. I want to keep telling you about weird old video games for as long as I'm able. Supporting the Patreon helps with that. Just saying. We've already said farewell to the Clay Fighter series. Later this year will feature the end of the Gokitsuji franchise, as well as the final episode remakes from Season 0. In that vein, today is also the end of Kronos Digital Entertainment's contributions to the FGC. We all have some strange, special feelings about their sci-fi efforts in Criticom and its direct sequel Dark Rift, and if you're more of a fan of action-adventure fare, they released 2 Fear Effect games which were received very well. But between those duologies was a standalone fantasy fighter that is our topic for today. I'm Eric J. Chucky, and welcome to Violent Profiles, where we discuss obscure fighting games and the rosters that define them. If you could enter an era of unprecedented peace long enough to hit the like button and comment on the video, I'd appreciate it. Also, if you're not already, please subscribe. So very few of my viewers are subscribed. How do you expect to know when a new episode of Violent Profiles releases? It's certainly not just the first Wednesday of the month or anything. Cardinal Sin dropped in 1998, published by Sony's 989 Studios. That's a lot of 8s and 9s, which is quite unlike the game's middling review scores. Chief among the complaints was a criticism of simplistic AI, which means I might actually be able to win a round or two. The game isn't all that different from Criticom or Dark Rift in concept, but it's appreciably better in execution. I feel in control of my character. Moving into 3D space is natural, and they've added some interesting new mechanics. For example, that little circle in the lower portion of your side of the screen is your shield. You can only turtle for so long before it breaks. As a downside, the moves in general are very limited and very combo-focused as opposed to a healthy mix of combos and specials. You can bust open crates to get power-ups, Sunny D to refill your health, Cool Blue Gatorade to enable your magic attack, a sword to empower your strikes, and bombs to cause general chaos. The game has some very generic fatalities for the gore fanatic in you, but they're far more tedious to execute than they're worth. And there are some rough edges, like your weapon bouncing off the walls like Dark Souls when you swing too close to the arena's barriers. That's not fun. We've got a girthy roster of 18-ish characters, but before we can understand the meat of their motivations, we need the skeleton of the basic story. I'm compelled to let the narrator tell the tale. He's pretty good, but it's hard to call this a transformative work if I don't, transform stuff. Suffice to say, a long time ago, the region known as the Bloodland was affected by war and strife. A benevolent man called the Wanderer arrived and enraptured the clans of the Bloodland with tales from his Book of Knowledge, uniting them in an era of unprecedented peace. Satisfied with his work, the Wanderer divided the Book of Knowledge into scrolls and bequeathed them to each of the clans. Then, just left. Of course, the clans almost immediately got back to kicking the snot out of each other in a bid to obtain all the scrolls and their presumed power. Enter Sin, a sorceress woman with questionable intentions wearing an amulet bearing a twisted version of the Wanderer's icon of peace. She takes the scrolls and forges them into 3 swords inscribed with the wisdom of the original Book of Knowledge. Sin holds an 8-person tournament with the winner said to earn the swords and their clan's right to rule the Bloodland. Unfortunately, the victor of the tournament vanished after meeting with Sin, the intro telling us she murdered him and maybe siphoned his power from his corpse. The people are unnerved by the mysterious disappearance, but Sin's mountaintop pavilion still stands, so when word of another tournament reaches the people's ears, they're eager to pursue the power of the swords. The Bloodland isn't a region with a lot of level-headed, honorable individuals. The timeline on this is a little irregular between the in-game presentation, the manual text, and the way some of the cutscenes play out. I can't assemble a satisfying version that honors all aspects, so I'd just suggest trying not to think too hard about any contradictions. I certainly won't. Should you unlock her and play as Sin, she dons sultry battle armor and wields a glowy green mace and shield. Beat the game with her and you discover her goal is to turn into a dragon. I'm going to guess, based on context clues, that Sin uses the power gained from the tournament's bloodshed to fuel her transformation into the dragon, Kron, and does stuff somewhere else until that power runs out. The Kron form is also playable, excruciatingly powerful, and sassy AF, but has no intro or ending cutscene. Kron is the goal, obviously, and requires no other explanation. What story could there possibly be to tell? Kron is short for Kronos Digital Entertainment software, much like Sonork from the previous games was Kronos spelled backward. It's a good bit. Let's start the proper roster with Princess Orion of the Elven clan, because she's the first person available on the character select screen. One of the few non-violent clans remaining in the Bloodland, the Elves recognize constant war will eventually bring doom to their doorstep. With her father, who I guess is soulless from Dragon Age, either nebulously ill or avoiding his responsibilities with a handy excuse of Odin sleep, it falls to the princess to put on her skimpy armor and take up her stabby crossbow thing to fight for the knowledge of the swords so that no other may obtain and exploit it. Orion plays about as average as you'd expect from the default character, and her unique move is a cartwheel kick that's pretty handy to whip out in a variety of situations. Use her axe bow to defeat Sin, and Orion ushers in a new era of peace as the queen of the Elven clan, her father seemingly passing on after bidding his daughter a final farewell. Apparently representing a whole clan of people who are the result of a genetic defect, the Cyclopean Mongoro is not your typical heavy hitter, sporting a broadsword and spiked fist weapon. He has more speed than your average big guy, and his moves flow and chain together nicely. There is the big fart move to remind us all of the gross imperfections of the 90s, but I'm willing to let it slide in the face of everything else. Like, come on, how often do you get to play as a Cyclops? Plus, he's not wielding a giant axe, which is almost unheard of. Neat. Something about the Cyclops' lives means they become cannibals, and Mongoro wants to use the knowledge of the swords to discover how to husband humans like cattle. His ending might suggest he's on the verge of this, or, I don't know, maybe he doesn't even know that the swords contain passages from the Book of Knowledge the manual says he was searching for. Read the updated lore, Mongoro. Another villain, Nephra represents the Sethite clan, who one can presume worship the Egyptian god Seth. The Sethites believe the knowledge inscribed upon the blades to be the word of their deity, and that it will lead them to become a thriving slave empire. A blunt but effective villainous motivation. She wields a culturally accurate khopesh and piercing buckler that is sometimes a falcon to dispatch her enemies. If Nephra wins the tournament that isn't really a tournament, but this isn't the time for me to get into that again, her statue of what looks like Horus but is probably supposed to be Seth explodes into hissing green tentacles that wrap her up and fade to black before we can witness whatever R-rated content might follow. I'm sorry, this is killing me. If I can nitpick here, this is the second time in my admittedly limited cultural experience that I've seen a 90s property involving Seth or Set associating with snakes. I'm assuming the tentacles are supposed to be snakes anyhow on account of the hissing, but they don't have heads. Either way, Seth doesn't preside over snakes, he fights them. So why would they be chilling inside his idol? Why did two edgy 90s properties get it so similarly wrong? Moving right along, it's not clear whether Plague is heroic or wicked. He was raised from the dead by the clan of the Wretched as their undead champion, hence the distended stomach and rotting visage. Wielding a club and vomiting forth green ooze, Plague is a lot more agile than you might expect given his post-mortemness, and not only did I enjoy playing as him, but I liked his charming victory dance. Eat your heart out, Fortnite. Win the game with him and he uses the swords to create a whole dang zomboid army for the clan of the Wretched, and I don't know, good for them. Not everyone who raises an army of the living dead is doing it for evil reasons, right? Can altruism and necromancy mix? I'm open to the idea. McCreeg is the most courageous and powerful fighter in the Dwarven clan, who are locked in near constant war with the most vicious clans of the Bloodland. He's equipped with a shield and battle axe, and holy crap does he get to business with that thing. He's kinda tall for a dwarf, but hey, different fantasy worlds are allowed to do their versions of traditional fantasy creatures differently. Norse mythology never said specifically dwarves were short, so it's cool if that's Cardinal Sin's vibe. Should McCreeg defeat Sin, the not short dwarves win their endless battle and cut down a tree about it. I assure you that makes sense, but you wouldn't know that unless you beat the game with Moloch. No, not him, don't be stupid. Cardinal Sin's Moloch is a pot-bellied lizard guy who was apparently born to dwarven parents. Maybe even McCreeg, I don't know, it's dark and hard to tell. Moloch does share his move list in large part. The dwarves leave the little abomination on that same tree for McCreeg's ending, and surprise surprise, he survives and becomes the powerful lizard guy warrior we know and love from hit PlayStation title Cardinal Sin. Believe it or not, there are actually a bunch of lizard guys, so following the logic provided by Mongoro's origin, perhaps entire subraces are regularly created in this world through fairly common birth defects. The dwarves and lizard guys are often at war, and if Moloch is victorious, we see dwarves hanging from their wrists by that very same tree. Ultimately a satisfying little storytelling loop there, but you don't get to understand the whole scope unless you beat the game with Moloch, who you only unlock after beating the game with McCreeg. Wouldn't it be better if Moloch was on the default roster, and by the time you get to McCreeg's ending you already understand the significance of the tree and why he'd cut it down? How it symbolizes the defeat of the blighted lizard folk? Or is it meant to be a twist, since Moloch's cinematic cast McCreeg and the dwarves in a less flattering light? I don't think throwing away a baby makes you a hero, even if the baby is weird and stupid. Honestly, especially if the baby is weird and stupid.
Stupid babies need the most attention.
Vanguard seems more like a title than a name. The manual says this heavily armored swordsman represents the Dark Knight clan who once served as the Wanderer's personal guard, but now crave absolute control over all. Vanguard's intro shows his shiny golden leader handing him a weapon, which he does 6 sword kata with before venturing off to claim the Blades of Knowledge. Calling him one of my favorite characters to play is kind of silly because I honestly like all of them, but he's definitely got some moves I really enjoyed executing. Find victory with Vanguard and he brings the blades back to his leader, who says that he should instead share the knowledge with the people. That doesn't seem like a tyrannically evil thing to do. Interesting. He also has a mace on his left hand for some reason, the reason I assume being the rule of cool, and I like his very beaky helmet. On the other hand, Finkster is a thief by trade, representing the clan of that profession in their bid to earn the sword version of the Book of Knowledge. I don't like his name, I don't like his extremely long nose, I don't like that he doesn't wear shoes. I get it, he's a thief, and that's probably quieter than anything a cobbler could make, but he's got this heel drop move that just seems all the more insulting when it's naked, calloused, odoriferous flesh slapping you in the face. Finkster fights with twin daggers that don't do much damage but are quick and apply a lot of pressure. Should he be victorious, the manual says the Clan of Thieves wants to sell the blades, but Finkster just puts them on an archival shelf reminiscent of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Top men.
Well, I say them, the swords are a book again somehow in his ending.
Look, it's me. I'm here to deal with it.
The final member of the roster listed in the manual is Heklar from the Clan of the Jester. Some of these clans I have to wonder, like, what do they do? Why are there enough jesters to fill a clan in what seems like a relatively small region of the world? Heklar was once Syn's court clown until he witnessed her murdering the winner of the previous tournament. He attempted to warn everyone of her evil, but got slapped for his troubles. Rude. This drove him mad, and now he roams the countryside doing murders. Heklar wants revenge on everyone who wronged him, especially Syn, and intends to use the blades to achieve these ends. Y'all know I love clowns, and Heklar is no different. He has a little jester stick and a swirly patterned shield, he does dance-like clown capers as part of his moves, and he's always laughing. His magic attack blows a big bubble. The only thing I wish was a bit better is the reach on his normals, but nobody's perfect. Finish the game with him, and he decapitates his former employer, does a little jig, then kicks her head off one of the pillars in her arena, and cashes it on his shiny new Sword of Knowledge. Tremendous! Bravo, Heklar. Alright. This is where things get interesting. Not that this isn't already a fascinating tale and a curious, albeit derivative little world, but there's an intriguing extra layer as it regards the unlockable characters. As mentioned with Moloch, each is a clone fighter of the person whose victory makes them available, albeit with some slightly different special moves. These characters still have intro and ending cutscene videos, but there's nothing in the manual to offer the vein of detail I've been trying to mine to better flesh out the other bios. Some stories are easy enough to grasp. Junie, unlocked with Finkster, seems to be some kind of Fey creature tasked with restoring the ravaged world by the Elder Fey Council, or some proactive hags or something. If she succeeds, they enact a big ritual and the beauty of the forest is restored, spreading rampantly through the once blasted Bloodland. Compare that to the bony monstrosity one with Plague named Stygian, who seems to pull himself together from a traditional medieval pile of corpses one day. Upon defeating Syn, he uses the power of her ritual basin to give himself flesh, but still not a lower jaw. Is he a demon taking mortal form to terrorize the land? The magic of the Clan of the Wretched gone awry? Is he gonna get some skin too, or is a stiff breeze going to show him the greatest pain he's ever known? Khan is as dirt simple as Mongoro, whose victory allows you to use him, being a celebrated fighter of his clan who goes on to challenge Syn, win, and inscribe his visage on the Blades of Knowledge, hoarding them among his many other trophies from fallen foes. But Heklar's counterpart Vodou has a bit more complexity while still maintaining a clear story. Our guy Vodou is whiling away a Saturday night doing his favorite dance when he is beset by visions of Kron, so he sets out to ensure such terrors do not assail the land. Should he topple Syn, he throws her body on a massive ritual pyre. She makes one last-ditch effort to destroy him with her magic, but Vodou nimbly dodges out of the way and uses one of the Swords of Knowledge to finish her off. Bimorphia is unlocked with Nephra, and I feel deserves highlighting as one of the more grotesque backstories I've seen in a fighting game. Originally two separate people that Syn thought it would be amusing to lash together into one functional body, Bimorphia fights through the rest of the tournament to reach their torturer, their creator. Once they gain the swords, they convert them back into the Book of Knowledge and, dressed as the Wanderer, spread tales of harmony and wisdom throughout the land. I like Bimorphia's story a lot, almost Twisted Metal Black-like in its grisly origins, but it arrives at a satisfying resolution instead of the grim irony prevalent in that title. After winning with Vanguard, you get Redemptor, whose story opens with him kneeling before an inscribed triangular symbol. He pulls on his hood and stands up before executing a bedraggled man who is brought before him. This continues in Redemptor's ending, but his next would-be victim stops his blade with mysterious force. It is revealed that this is the Wanderer returned, and he destroys the triangular symbol with his magic. Seeing this ending was kind of exciting in a way. The intro felt very repetitive with the Wanderer solving everyone's problems and leaving only for them to start fighting again. Why have him appear at all? Why not just have warring clans whom Syn promises power to in the form of 6 swords? But now it feels like there's a reason he was included, and a story that might eventually unfold in the alternate timeline where we got more Cardinal Sin games. I also have to wonder if Redemptor and Vanguard's names didn't get switched in development, or perhaps their stories. Vanguard gives the knowledge of the swords to the people at the behest of his order. This is more altruistic and more fitting of someone with the name Redemptor. Meanwhile, the actual Redemptor would make sense being a part of an order of fallen knights that once guarded the Wanderer, since he's directly a part of that character's story. The Wanderer returns to destroy the new false idol because he has a stake in that order of knights specifically. He knew them. And while I'm asking questions, what exactly does that triangular symbol represent? It's not Syn's emblem as far as we know, that's the corrupted version of the Wanderer's icon of peace. Now, for the closest thing resembling an answer, we look to our last entry, Mongwan. Victory with Orion offers you this monk, or whatever kind of cloistered meditative warrior he's supposed to be. He too sees visions of Kron's terror and dons his armor, seemingly to end this threat. But if you beat the game with him, he gets creative and assembles the 3 swords of knowledge into a triangular shape. Ah, just like Redemptor's symbol. Stepping into the center of the swords, Mongwan suddenly disappears, leaving only his clothing and armor behind. So too does any hope of answers vanish with him. Were these threads meant to be unraveled in a sequel, or would we have gotten a not-quite reboot-style follow-up in the way Dark Rift was to Criticom? Only those of us still in the Berenstain universe could know, and I'm sure that universe's me grew up obsessing over this PlayStation title in the same fashion the me of this world holds such fondness in his heart for Mace the Dark Age. Cardinal Sin is a solid enough game for the era, not spectacular, but it hangs in the upper C tier, or maybe even the low B, with many of the other hidden gems we cover on this show. Hey, I haven't said this one in a while. It's a shame we didn't get more. They had some really good ideas here. As for next time on Violent Profiles, I think it's time to return to something more pixelated than the smooth animations and 3D models of our recent entries. The type of game that makes you ask questions. Questions that start with, "Hey, punk." If you'd like to answer that question right now, support us on Patreon at the $5 tier, and next month's video will be yours, as well as exclusive access to old Season 0 Violent Profiles episodes no longer available on this channel. And of course, your name will join the high scores currently on screen to prove you are a legend of the FGC in your own right. Until next time, white out.